Welcome to the audio version of the last chapter in the book Wikinomics, How Mass Collaboration Changes Everything. This chapter was uniquely created, assembled and mastered by contributions to a wiki on the internet at www.socialtext.net/Wikinomics. My name is Luke Grange, and given my interest in the concepts and principles of the book, I decided to add value to the written version by creating an audio chapter. You are under no obligation, but if you find value in the work I've done, would you be so kind as to show your gratitude by sending $2 via PayPal to donations@wikinomics.com.au. I hope you enjoy the reading of the book. The Wikinomics Playbook, Mass Collaboration in Action. Quote, any open system has the capacity to respond to change and disorder by reorganizing itself at a higher level of organization. Disorder becomes a critical player, an ally that can provoke a system to self-organize into new forms of being. Chaos is necessary to new creative ordering. By Margaret Wheatley, Leadership and the New Science. Quote, wikis are not about bottom-up management. They are about round-table solving of solutions where the titles are null and void, where intellects win and where ideas are valued, not ruthlessly critiqued. Wikis change the paradigm. The goal is a refined idea, not an idea beaten into consensus. Todd Dunn, Wikinomics Playbook contributor. Preface. At the end of 2006, the same week Wikinomics was first published, the Time magazine chose you, the online collaborator, as the Person of the Year. Time was right to highlight the explosion of social networking. MySpace was growing at 2 million new registrants per week, and with over 200 million members is on its way to 500 million. Most college students in the US were on Facebook. A new blog was created every second of the day, 24 hours a day. It seemed that you really was changing the world. At the time, we were thrilled to launch our book at such an auspicious moment in history, but looking back on it, it was 2006. As we explained in Wikinomics, the internet is no longer about hooking up online, creating a gardening community, or putting a video onto YouTube. User-generated media and social networking are just the tip of the iceberg. A new mode of production is in the making. Thanks to the Web 2.0, companies are beginning to conceive, design, develop, and distribute products and services in profoundly new ways. The old notion that you have to attract, develop, and retain the best and brightest inside your corporate boundaries is becoming null. With costs of collaboration falling precipitously, companies can increasingly source ideas, innovations, and uniquely qualified minds from a vast global pool of talent. The evidence continues to mount in support of our assertion that the corporation may be going through the biggest change in its short history. The work you're about to read is another example of how mass collaboration is transforming the economy and society. Wikinomics was published with 11 chapters, but only the first 10 chapters had been written. Chapter 11, the Wikinomics Playbook, was a blank slate, with an open invitation for the world to help us write a fitting conclusion on Wikinomics.com. Over the course of 2007, something remarkable happened. A community of readers and experts formed and took on a life of its own. Thanks to a great deal of diligent wiki gardening, the community crafted a compelling and insightful guide to embedding Wikinomics concepts and principles in 21st century organizations and business enterprises. Hundreds of individuals generously volunteered their valuable time and ideas to the playbook, and we're grateful to everyone who took this journey with us. A special thanks goes to Michael Pilling, who worked tirelessly to help guide and inspire the Wikinomics community. Another 22 contributors deserve special mention for the hard work and creativity they put into writing this chapter. They are Ron Long, Michael Lane, Max Ugaz, Kartik Uriya, Al Safrata, Francil Aspural Leonares. Mark Temple Reston, Gabriel Draven, Bob Iliff, Kate Rains Goldie, Joost Beckel, Jeff Deschamps, Stephen Strait, Alex Todd, Crit Jarvis, Neil Locke, Ryan Riley, Todd Dunn, Martin Cleaver, Bert Murray, Brendan Long, and Pete Hain. May this be the first of many wiki books. All the best in 2008. Sincerely, Don Tapscott and Anthony Williams. January 2008. Chapter 1. To Wiki or Not. Quote, "If it's a good idea, go ahead and do it. It's much easier to apologize than it is to get permission." Grace Hooper. Quote, "Being bold is so far outside the box for most people that they don't even have a guess where to begin." Anonymous. Quote, "Listening to Rob Zombie cranked up to 10 on headphones is generally incompatible with deciding things via conference calls." By Anonymous. Anyone can edit. The significance of wikis and Wikinomics is not due to some technical breakthrough. At its core, Wiki isn't a technology at all. It's a permission setting. Anyone can edit. In the Unix world, such a file permission is labeled 666. Anyone may read and write. Is generally considered to be highly dangerous, insecure. However, even more dangerous is the 777 setting, in which people can not only edit, but everyone is empowered to do something with the results. The metaphor is not inappropriate for the business world. If you allow everyone to alter the information, but don't allow them to do anything with it, this is likely a recipe for frustration, pure zaniness, or disaster. On the other hand, if you enhance that creative energy and the permission to do, you might hit the jackpot and be at the center of a thriving commercial ecosystem. Think of Amazon, the bookseller that invited everyone to be a bookseller, or Facebook, the website that gave away its crown jewels and tripled its value. The chapter, To Wiki or Not, is about fear. It is about the rewards of facing fears and the risks. Be warned, the Wikinomics Playbook is true to its wiki roots, so you won't find that it's all wrapped up in a neat package for you. The contributors and editors struggle to find the right balance between the temptation to rework the contributions into a tightly woven narrative and the desire to respect the diversity of thought and the scope of the contributions that were produced by the community. Hopefully the results justify the struggle. 1.1.1 List of reasons why companies should wiki. 1. A wiki can pool the talents of experts, retired CEOs, tinkering genius amateurs, obsessive over-archiving bloggers, crowdsourced investigators, hardcore web users, physically distant scholars, and articulate early adopters to solve a problem or build a public access treasury of information. 2. Wikis can improve collaboration within and or beyond corporate boundaries and firewall and across time zones. 3. Listening to Rob Zombie cranked at 10 on headphones is generally incompatible with deciding things via conference calls. 4. The wikis offer the opportunity for unanticipated players to contribute who have different perspectives to those normally regarded as the subject matter experts. They break down the essential relationship between insiders and outsiders and the rules that allow only certain so-called qualified people to participate in particular work tasks. Unanticipated players can bring in unexpected perspectives, ideas, and connect different knowledge points together. 5. A wiki workplace provides greater flexibility for the participants' time management, which is an absolute necessity in the modern world. 6. By creating a transparent process through which people can contribute to problem solving, solutions can be created through a process of co-creation. By co-creating a vision or a solution, the necessity of facilitating buy-in can be removed. There is no need for people to buy in to something that they helped shape, form, and create. 1.1.2 List of reasons why companies will not wiki. 1. The 9 times problem. Goebbels' rule of thumb states that one will underestimate the advantages of a new technology by a factor of 3, while simultaneously overestimating the disadvantages of giving up old technology by a factor of 3. This means that unless a new technology is 10 times better at doing something, it's unlikely to get accepted. 2. Security issues. A belief that collaboration with others is impossible, unnecessary, or risky for work entailing sensitive information. 3. Political and cultural issues. Traditional forms of organizational structure create inherent barriers to collaboration. Being bold rarely has positive career outcomes for employees who try it. 4. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Management has a tendency to seek enhanced control in a world that is increasingly uncertain. In doing so, they want to know what the future will look like and to direct and enact a specific business plan. But by unleashing their team with a wiki, anything could happen, resulting in a perception of reduced control. 5. Urgency. Senior leaders in organizations tend to believe that teamwork, collaboration, and joint decision-making are less efficient than top-down chain of command management practices, though there is evidence that the opposite is actually the case. Is there such a thing as secret information anymore? The whole idea of secret information is pre-wiki, for this denotes the idea that the privately held information has reached its highest potential, and that to make it public would only make it less. The whole value behind the wiki concept is that information is never truly finished. It can always be analyzed and edited from a different point of view, most likely making it all the more valuable. But should everything be up for discussion and collaboration? How is organizational continuity ensured? Should the janitor be able to contribute to the strategic planning process? What about the people in the call center? They are tasked with delivery of the frontline customer experience. Should they be able to contribute to the creation of organizational strategy? After all, they clearly have something relevant to contribute. But do they have the holistic viewpoint of the organization that takes years to develop and which is required at the strategic apex of an organization? At the strategic apex of an organization, there is an implied accountability. Who's accountable? All of us? None of us? Only those who contribute? If an initiative fails, are those who opted out responsible? After all, if the initiative succeeded, they couldn't reasonably expect to share in the rewards and recognition. At whose desk does the proverbial buck stop? And as we democratize organizations and processes, we imply that all viewpoints are valid. But are they? A wiki is supposed to eradicate the outliers, the viewpoints that are just plain bad. But what if expertise doesn't win out? What if the loudest and most persistent troll wins? Aside, what is a wiki? Definition: a wiki is a medium which can be edited by anyone with access to it, and provides an easy method for linking from one page to another. Wikis are typically collaborative websites, though there are now also single-user offline implementations. Ward Cunningham, developer of the first wiki, WikiWeb, originally described it as the simplest online database that could possibly work. This definition is from wikipedia.org. Or is a wiki the cult of the amateur, about sharing power, knowledge, responsibility, and wealth? The Web 2.1 gimmick, a pool of tinkering genius amateurs. The future of enterprise collaboration. 1 million monkeys with computers. A cornerstone of Enterprise 2.0 processes. A platform for employee empowerment for critical decision-making. A diffusion of decision-making to the point where no one is accountable. Cut-and-paste research. A facilitator of teams with purpose. A liberator of talent. the avatar of mediocrity, or all of these things. 1.1.4. Does the answer lie in an and? Maybe the answer lies in an and. Maybe some information is sensitive and it can be made more valuable through collaboration. Maybe the ideas of organizational continuity and strategic integrity are still important, and we can enhance competitive advantage by facilitating the co-creation of organizational vision. Maybe accountability is still a requisite, and we can enhance accountability when we democratize processes and enable people to engage in shared decision-making. Maybe we need to ensure that ground rules are established and known by all, and we can trust people to do the right thing when they know the ground rules. Maybe the question is not, are we a Wikified organization or are we not, but rather, when do we wiki and how? Chapter 2. The Wikified Organization. The Wikified organization is a proposal for the ultimate in flattening of an organization that was pushed in most business schools so heavily during the 90s. A Wikified approach is a suggestion box, amped up. It is empowerment to do something about it, whatever it is. It is about sharing power, knowledge, responsibility, and wealth. Michael Lane. At its heart, the Wikified organization is about communications, wide open, no holes barred, inclusive communications. It's the kind of communications that will wake most managers from a restless night's sleep, the kind of openness in operational communications that has never been possible in an organization before. 2.1. Idea, commitment, connection, results, repeat. This is a new concept. The kernel of the idea is that a team, business, friends, organizations, government and others, form around a single unified concept. They, as a collective unit, pool all their spare capital, time, talent, and treasure around this topic. As a result, the team grows significantly faster than a similar team organized around the typical hierarchy found in most organizations. It has more assets to draw from: social contacts, capital, brain cells, enthusiasm, and equipment. It is simply better at self-organization than any organization that has existed prior. Innate enthusiasm is the reasons their projects succeed. When the team is emotionally committed, they evangelize the idea spreads, more people become emotionally invested, and the cycle continues more quickly during the next iteration. The best definition so far is simply this: a team forms around an idea, pool their assets, give a damn about the results, and because of their success, they tell other people. Then they repeat the process for growth. They achieve their goal and continually expand from the original core concept that was the founding idea. In essence, the recipe is this simple: idea, commitment, connection, results, repeat. 2.1.2. Survival is not mandatory. While it is hard to imagine what Web 3.0 will look like, there is a certainty that it will occur, and when it does, the Wikified organization will have to adjust to that too. In the meantime, getting revved up for Web 2.0 should be more than enough challenge for any team. If the current manager of a team is not nervous about this Wikified approach, then it is a safe bet that management doesn't fully 1. Understand, 2. Appreciate, and or 3. It's fully committed to the complete organizational transformation that is about to occur. With or without you, your organization will change. It will change because it will be stronger, faster, and smarter than any similar non-Wikified static organization. There will be more commitment, buy-in, and enthusiasm. But you don't have to agree. As Seth Godin has said, survival is not mandatory. 2.1.3 Moving from ideas to causes. Collaboration. Big deal, right? You could simplify your life and post a suggestion box and go back to business as usual. The difference here is that these ideas generated through mass collaboration are fundamentally different, both in quality and ability to execute with wisdom. The difference is that the people have the power, wherewithal, and commitment to see the suggestion box bear fruit. These ideas come from people that are passionately concerned about the success of the idea, and they have the ability to tap into the network to fulfill it. We all have ideas every day. Maybe they are even good ideas. The problem isn't the number of concepts, but the ability of a community to parse out the good from the bad. With a wikified approach, a team can transform a good idea into a cause, and a cause has a life of its own. Often, a cause is unstoppable if the idea that spawned it is good enough. Later, a cause, if it has enough energy, capital, and direction, reader's steerage and guidance, can become a movement, and a movement can change the world. 2.2 Wikis and the evolution of the serial paradigm. In the serial paradigm era, each department and functionary had specific tasks to address. They built their deliverables to be reviewed by other departments and functionaries further along the chain. Typically, end consumers were at the end of the chain, linked only into the sales and support departments. The other end of the chain was driven by market research and ideas related to trends or perceived needs. Customer feedback existed, but most processes were not connected with real customer needs and issues. The whole process took a long time. By the time the solution was developed and ready for market, needs had often changed, or the perception of the market and opportunity had shifted. The accelerated pace of business has further exacerbated the problems inherent in managing a long linear product development process. What is needed is a collaborative working environment and technology that will compress timelines while strengthening the value chain by facilitating short cycles of feedback and shared insights amongst the community. The better the company becomes at responding in a timely way to customer needs, the more enthusiastic the customers will be about the product. Continuing to develop after the sale enables the team to anticipate new needs and opens the door to new markets. Tearing down the silos that comprise the serial process is the best way to speed up and maximize value creation. By understanding what our organizations or enterprises do, we develop powerful insight into how strategic advantage can be created. If the what of modern organizations is the ability to gather information, think about it, process it, and create knowledge that is then turned into products or services. Wikinomics can be used to open up the organization, connect the customers and employees alike, and innovate at breakneck speed. 2.2.1 Cockroach Strategies. How outsourcing, information networks, and industry collaboration are changing corporations as we know them. Mass collaboration can support cross-disciplinary activities, but it can also facilitate intercompany collaboration, thereby enabling an industry to become even more like an ecosystem. This is not new. As companies identify peer partners, they often spin off support functions from the core of their firm. It took IBM 40 years to modernize the computer and produce the PC. They did such a good job that once the modularized PC was established as an industry standard, the assembly of computers became decommoditized. Anyone could do it. Profit generation shifted from computer assembly to processor manufacturing, and then to the function of operating system design. IBM had outsourced these components to Microsoft and Intel. In hindsight, it wasn't the best move for IBM, but the world reaped a tremendous benefit: affordable computing. Business webs comprised of small, nimble firms that play collaboratively to spin out and create value networks can become highly competitive at the industry level. Operating as a swarm, they will learn, adapt, and innovate faster without stifling corporate hierarchy. Behavioral rules and industry standards will be created in an emergent process. These webs will change continuously through cycles of commoditization and decommoditization. Traditionally siloed or vertically integrated firms will likely start becoming more like these networks or part of them. By their nature, swarms will be difficult to compete against and impossible to overcome by force. If cockroaches are genetically programmed to scatter as part of a defense strategy that confounds potential enemies, perhaps Wikinomics will give rise to the industrial version of cockroach strategies. As competitive advantage shifts from traditional sources of advantage such as size, scale, and the ability to marshal capital, and towards more intangible capabilities such as the capacity for organizational learning, knowledge creation, and the cockroach-like capability of innovation on the fly, are we potentially heading towards a future of small businesses and cottage industries? Has the concept of scale been obsolesced? 2.2.2 Corporations as a vehicle for wealth creation. Corporations largely exist as risk mitigation structures. They are legally immune to the sorts of risks partnerships are liable to, and explicitly quantify the risk that investors in them take, nothing more than the cost of the shares. Risk mitigation is needed when individuals do not possess sufficient capital to produce efficiently on their own. But the rise of individual wealth, and therefore the willingness to take greater risks, combined with greater knowledge and access to information for individuals, will continue to reduce the need for large enterprises and economies of scale. 2.2.3 Economies of scale matter less today. For starters, economies of scale matter more in the physical world of manufacturing than in the service world. It doesn't take an aircraft hangar to house a consulting unit. As technology advances, the process of finding better and better ways to produce physical products inevitably results in decentralization of production. Most of the tools of the 19th century factories, for example, can now be contained in a well-stocked garage. Most things that used to be made out of steel can now be made out of plastic and composites. Production itself is becoming more organic. Several examples can be given. Airplane bodies are manufactured in very large facilities because of the enormous fixed costs of the molds and basic metal forming equipment. But if we can get the requisite properties through simply arranging different metal foils onto plastic or terracotta supports and heat them at low temperatures, great economies of scale aren't necessary. Silicon microelectronics production currently requires $10 billion fabrication plants. But if research efforts at nano self-assembly succeed, as they apparently are, the $10 billion capital requirement may shrink to $100,000. Such advances would create opportunities for a microelectronics cottage industry with competitors identifying and creating products for highly specialized niches. As the capital requirements of industrial initiatives in a wide variety of sectors shrink, currently unfathomed opportunities for innovation and entrepreneurship emerge. 2.2.4 Living the consequences. If you Wikify, you will experience unintended consequences. Don't spend a lot of time in strategy sessions or brainstorming meetings figuring out where this will go. Once you uncork the bottle and release the genie, your Wikified planning process is alive now, and the others are all dead. It will plan and grow, however, and wherever it wants. Accept your lack of control and be a parent rather than a boss. Offer guidance and support. Define your limits. Post your concerns. Wikify them. Create some core documents and some basic rules of conduct, all editable and modifiable by the team, and some common courtesy and common sense. Then turn it loose. Chapter 3. Leadership in Collaborative Communities. Leadership in a collaborative community is radically different from conventional forms of command and control management. Don't be surprised if leaders you never considered before bubble to the surface. But for this approach, it takes a different form of leadership than you might be used to. It's a leadership by encouragement and inclusion. Dictators won't function in this environment. In this world, executive sponsors will be faced with the responsibility of promoting participation and ensuring consistency to organizational mission, strategy, vision, and values. Simply, your role will be to ensure that people work together. This will require the reconciliation of different goals and agendas. In the transnational organization, national and cultural boundaries will require bridging. Your expanded role will include recruiting, fostering, and developing relationships that are entirely outside your organization. 3.1. The Reverse Solution Life Cycle. Developing and selling solutions for a business is based on the recognition of an anticipated problem and the creation of a solution to satisfy an anticipated need. Since the receivers, benefactors of the solution are the customer, the problem and need perceived to solve the problem must be centered in the customer's domain. Market, competitive, and consumer insight research results in vast amounts of data that requires consolidation and interpretation by specific areas within a company to determine how a solution should be researched, developed, marketed, sold, delivered, serviced, and measured for success. The collection and assimilation and analysis of this information provide the direction for a business to market, sell, deliver, and operate in a solutions environment. This is typically approached in a serial process, with each functional group within a company performing its unique function in the life cycle that will hopefully come together in a solution that a customer will buy and derive value. This serialized process has its merits in the past business world and functioned relatively well until the pace of change and information flow rapidly increased in the information age. Each of the functional areas above had their place in the solutions market, but now greater collaboration and integrated efforts of cross-functional teams is required by business, continually employing customer feedback loops in their processes. Now, instead of suppliers anticipating customer needs, the customer dictates the need, with suppliers working to satisfy the need with a solution. This change is a reverse solution life cycle and is customer driven. To succeed, it must be collaborative, agile, and adaptive. 3.1.1. The emotional and the rational. Encourage emotional responses to these changes. There will be many and varied emotions within the team. Some of these will be hostile. Reinforce the positive reactions. There'll be people that test the waters to find out the level of commitment that management has in this effort. Connect with and endorse the ones that rise to the challenge. These will be your new crop of leaders. Rational consideration will take root once your team sees that this new toy is in fact a very serious tool. That is when you know that the approach is working, because your best people will start insisting that collaborative work be accomplished mainly through this tool. 3.1.2. Best and brightest will not always rise to the top. The network values collaborators, but what about the recluse? The genius, wizard, geek, hermit that never keeps notes or is sloppy in their organizational skills is practically a cliché in many fields. That means that some of the people with potentially the most to add to the body of knowledge, that is, the heart of the Wikified organization, are potentially the least likely to impart that experience to the organization, unless they can engage others with their ideas. The person that simply sits, puzzles, doodles, runs simulations and figures out solutions in isolation is going to be in trouble. There's not much use in avoiding this problem. Some people just don't fit in a Wikified environment. Some people, no matter what they do, will not want to work with the rest of the team. If someone says, "I can't" or "I won't," you should consider whether this person really belongs in your team, unless they can upload their knowledge. The Wikified organization presents a solution. Assess their brain power, codify their knowledge and ideas, upload their doodles, post their spreadsheets, let people look over their shoulder while they run their simulations, and, when they come to a conclusion, go over how they arrived at that conclusion. Leave them alone in a glass house. Others can determine the process they went through and document it, so that your future up-and-coming geniuses can have the benefit of this knowledge and experience. Get their ideas out of their heads, into the wiki and into the heads of everyone else on the team. Enable the team to co-brainstorm along with your genius. You never know where the next lightning will strike, but if you can harness the collective power of your team, you may generate more lightning. 3.2 Wiki Gardening: The Role of Administrators and Leaders. Axiom: He who writes the minutes of the meeting controls the outcome of the meeting. With every tool, there is a way to misuse it. Skilled wiki gardeners have a tremendous influence over the organization, simply because they're the ones that impart their knowledge to the rest of the team. Biases and agendas are a natural state for thinking, opinionated people. They have the power to slant and control the history of the meeting. A principal value in the wiki as a tool is its simplicity and ease of editing. You wield this power equally with the rest of your team. The edit sword swings both ways. In its worst incarnation, bad content can also be inserted effortlessly. Bad information is worse than no information. The trick, however, is to catch the misinformation before it can corrupt the efforts of a team. Simple mistakes, far more common than intentional damage, can easily propagate among the team. Care needs to be taken in vetting and approving contributions. It must be stressed that wiki gardeners are not gatekeepers. Do not give in to the temptation to be a bottleneck or throttle on the creative engine of Wikified collaboration. Rather, it's nothing less or more complicated than peer review and evaluation, and perhaps comments prior to posting. An aside and quote from Tom: Is the wisdom of crowds the enemy of genius? One of the behaviors I've witnessed in groups is that very few decisions get made unless someone is designated as the leader. If one of a group of peers tries to drive to a conclusion, the "who died and made you boss" comment starts to come out. It's not uncommon to have more than one way to solve a problem. Getting the team to agree on which way to solve it can be a challenge. Eventually, the natural leader will prevail through persuasion and logic, but this can sometimes take a lot of time and cause loads of frustration. Having a clearly designated leader can significantly shorten the process of building a working plan. On the other hand, if the leader in the meeting tries to force his or her plan onto the team, a poor plan could result. It is true that the collective minds of those doing the work generally have a better handle on what the problems are and how to solve them. The leader needs to understand this and allow the team to define the problem and present the plans for solutions. The leader should only facilitate the team through the rough spots and guide them around any potential deadlocks. The perfect leader sets the stage so the team feels comfortable in acting like a democracy, but understands that there is a leader in the room. Ultimately, the group has the ability to come up with the better plans. It is the mechanics of getting these that bogs things down. 3.2.1 The Creative Engine, the role for everyone else. In the book Wikinomics, the concept of the net generation, with all of its unique characteristics, demographics, and psychographics, was established. This is the group that will empower the transformation your team is embarking on. Wikinomics truncated that term to N generation. The Wikified approach truncates this further and modifies its meaning a little to N-gen or engine. This engine is what will drive your effort forward. These people, the ones that initially embrace the concept of a Wikified organization, will be the ones that help you reach your goals. This engine will take cross-training and cross-pollination to a wholly different place in a Wikified organization than is possible in a typical hierarchical-driven organization. The engine will create ideas, brainstorm, consider, evaluate, test, vet, approve, deny, marshal the resources, and complete the project. The engine will accomplish this if you let it. Chapter 4 A Wiki Adoption Strategy. Introducing any new technology or software across an organization is no piece of cake. Introducing collaborative technology is worse. It contradicts with the hierarchical traditions of most organizations. It denies the implicit or explicit territorial and self-interested behaviors that are a regular feature of company politics. It's hard to implement from the top. Lessons learned so far show bottom-up and or team-focused introductions tend to give the best results. The collected wisdom of the Wikinomics community has this advice for organizations adopting collaborative systems. 4.1 The Adoption Matrix. According to Joost Beckel, adoption of a new technology can be mapped in a two-dimensional matrix, which shows both how the technology is absorbed by individuals and by the company as an organic whole. The graph on the y-axis has individual progress. Beginning at the bottom left-hand corner, you have awareness, above it, ability, above that, mastery. Along the x-axis, you have group progress, starting in the bottom left-hand corner with awareness, evangelist, pilot projects, power users, part of the DNA. 4.1.1 Three dimensions of individual adoption. 3 dimensions of individual adoption are as follows. Mastery, realizing the benefit, it becomes one of my tools. Ability, being able to work with the tools, understanding technical aspects of the package. And awareness, knowledge of the solution as a concept and what problems it will solve. If you polled your user community about their personal adoption of a collaborative package, there are only 4 possible responses. I could have picked any tool, but for demonstration I'll choose Microsoft SharePoint as the example. A. I've never heard of SharePoint. What is it? This person hasn't achieved awareness. You need to form an internal unit that can get the word out with internal marketing, branding, and other promotional programs. Generally speaking, you stop having an awareness issue when 80% of the user community knows who you are. B. I've heard of SharePoint, but I'm not sure how to use it. Issue 2 is the ability issue. You need to develop a training program for the user community. The program should include marketing of the benefits and the end goals of adoption, training, well-documented recipes for how to do stuff, and an overview of the business processes before and after adoption. It's a good idea to build a sandbox version for people to play in, and establish a game or competition to get people emotionally involved. The need for training may run smack up against workers' individual capacity. Is time set aside to learn the new system, or is it just added to the already long list of duties? Unless there is a scheduled downtime for learning, expect some aggressive pushback, since the users will not believe it's actually a priority. C. I've heard of SharePoint, and I know what it can be used for, but I don't use it. Mastery tends to be the most difficult step. It involves social, cultural, and political issues. Starting with social issues. Older generations are less willing to invest in changing their habits, and the collaboration ethic tends to not be their dominant operating mode. Undertaking a change initiative can be challenging. Cultural issues require asking, is the organization designed for collaboration? Are compensation practices, managerial targets, and incentives or leadership styles undermining the implementation? Fear is the biggest cultural issue. Fear of losing control is much bigger than any of us can imagine. Moreover, political issues abound. NIH, not invented here. That's an IT thing, not a business tool. You get the idea, politics matter. So how do you get behind this? The answer is, one customer at a time. If the solution delivers the results promised, enough enlightened users will be demanding it, and peer pressure will eventually work on the rest of us. D. I use it all the time. Once you have half the users saying they use it all the time, the implementation team can pack up and go home. 4.1.2 Barriers to adoption. Another way to look at 2.0 adoption is to review the reasons people are not using the 2.0 services. Understanding these barriers can help you plan for your rollout of 2.0 services. Common barriers to adoption and participation include time available to contribute, learning new tools, knowing what to contribute, other tools already in use. Most organizations like to survey their current customers to understand why they are using 2.0 services. However, this seems to be self-defeating, but also depends on the level of maturity. It may be more helpful to find out where customers collaborate now and what their perceived needs are. Also, if adoption is floundering, you should quickly find out what the barriers are so that the services do not get a bad reputation. 4.1.3 Removing barriers and facilitating adoption. Strategies for removing barriers and facilitating adoption include: identify key user groups, identify and understand key users, convert key users into evangelists, turn evangelists into trainers, support bottom-up adoption and emergent behaviors. 4.2 The Collaboration Ethic. Quote by Margaret Wheatley, Leadership in the New Science. There is no longer any room for leaders to be heroes. Collaborative systems need a process framework as basic conditions for success. Is the social operating system in your company ready to upgrade? The key requirement for collaborative systems is that self-interested behavior, win-lose results, need to be kept at a minimum, or virtuous cycles can never emerge. If mutual respect and trust are absent, the company needs therapy, not a collaboration tool. Given a baseline level of cooperation exists, instilling a collaboration ethic can lift the company to the next level and enable the coordination and cooperation of a large number of people. Could these principles or others like them provide the guidelines for success in the new market economy driven by collaborative ecosystems? 1. Practice deep respect. Really, this is just a variation on the golden rule applied to opinions. What we assume of ourselves is that our opinion matters. We speak with the best intentions. There is truth in what we say. While these three are self-evident from an individual perspective, most of us can't carry it off in a group setting. Repeat this. There is no criticize in collaboration. Instead, you have deliberation and analysis. Another way of practicing deep respect. If you can, try walking around every day assuming that everything you think and believe is roughly 50% wrong. If you can pull that off, respecting others follows naturally. 2. Participation rules. This rule requires the opt-in principle. If you do not choose the opt-in and then participate in the process, you do not have the right to complain about the results. We must respect the collaborative process and respect people who have shown up for that process. Latecomers should not expect to have their opinions fully considered. At the end of the process, we must collaboratively stand by the results. Those who chose not to participate must respect the results. The opt-in requires trust in the group and transparency of process. 3. Nobody owns an idea. In response to being called a towering genius, Isaac Newton responded, "It's only because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants." There is no such thing as an original idea. The best we can do is absorb and reassemble old ideas in some new way. Some individuals do have a special ability for refactoring old ideas, but the ideas themselves are most likely the trees of a forest. They grow and thrive largely of their own accord. An aside during this chapter: 7 habits of highly successful wikis. Quote, "The call and need of a new era is for greatness, is for fulfillment, passionate execution, and significant contribution." When it was published in 1990, Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of a Highly Effective People became a blueprint in the personal development field. Almost 20 years later, Covey's guidelines closely mirror the collaboration ethic required for adopting Wikinomics. You can be the judge. Can you match these principles with wiki behaviors? Habit number 1. Be proactive. Number 2. Begin with the end in mind. 3. Put first things first. 4. Think win-win. 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. 6. Synergize. 7. Sharpen the saw, continue to evolve and learn. 4.3. Open PR. Wiki adoption in action. Corporations are under increasing pressure to explain themselves to a range of audiences: journalists, consumers, employees, investors, regulators, pressure groups, and voters. With increased scrutiny comes the imperative for companies to act with integrity and transparency. In the networked world, one-way conversations risk ringing hollow. Can the principles of Wikinomics change public relations for the better? If the environment is quickly transforming, fixated control spells disaster. Just ask Dell Computers, which today announces jumping into bright colors to hopefully boost their lagging sales. Didn't Apple do bright colors years ago? Quote by Darberg on June 27th, 6:31 a.m. The current generation of C-suite executives wield decades of experience and not a little success along the way, equipping them to be excellent command and control leaders. They won't ditch that experience, their personal crown jewels, without overwhelming evidence that they must, and they may not have the right attributes to adopt, even once evidenced. Ron, on June 28th at 1:40 p.m. PDT. The risk of being open may be higher for early adopters than they are for fast followers. This was the case for the Green Party of Canada in their use of a wiki to develop their election platform. While they were trying to change politics, everyone else was still engaged in politics as usual. This left the Green Party vulnerable and exposed. The other parties could see what the Greens were planning and the public could see the internal conflict going on within the party. Even though the same things were going on in the other parties, the conflict was kept hidden, and thus the Green Party's image was compromised. There is the potential for the same situation for open corporations. By Kate. The premise of open PR is that information will leak out eventually, so it's better to join the conversation early than to put out fires after the fact. A company that regularly discloses pertinent information to its stakeholders establishes the kind of reciprocity required to build trust. However, openness may not always be the right solution. For example, companies that lack confidence in their intrinsic value and/or have a vested interest in preserving their market and industry position would be unwise to facilitate a process that accelerates the erosion of stakeholder trust. This short-sighted defense risk management approach to managing the company should be a temporary tactic at best. To stay competitive, companies must adopt an active, trust-enabling posture where companies use a combination of communication tools with the stakeholders that contribute to long-run business performance. In the short run, companies can open up parts of their company to scrutiny by certain stakeholders and gradually expose the poorer parts as the company's performance improves. It is dangerous to default to denial and deception, a strategy that routinely backfires in a transparent world. As we say, if you're going to be naked, you better be buff. 4.3.1 To engage or not. A wiki that is available to participants who must log in to participate can provide a valuable dialogue mechanism for customer dialogue. Permission controls ensure that those who choose to participate are willing to provide an identity and are interested in constructive dialogue. Structuring the wiki with specific topics and domain areas provide a many-to-many way to converse around topics the company has interest in obtaining feedback around, giving users the ability to create discussion forums related to the company opens up the customer view that many companies try very hard to gather from exhaustive surveys and customer visits. This mechanism provides a real-time capture of topics that customers are interested in. A customer dialogue wiki also opens up the channel to customer communication related to a company's products and solutions, and also provides a birds of a feather community to customers who are sharing the same problems or adopting innovative ways to tackle a particular issue. Many company product solutions are customer driven. Opening up this contributed library of dialogue has a benefit to the company as well as to the customers that use the company's products and services to enhance and run their own businesses. This provides another channel of gathering useful information so that a company's products and services can rapidly adapt to the customer needs and provides client direction for product direction and strategy. Perhaps the most important lesson is that when a company chooses to host their own sites for public dialogue, it's imperative that they enable a two-way conversation. Questions will be asked and challenges made publicly. The company will need to respond in an intelligent and measured way. Increasingly, companies may be judged more by the quality of its discussions than the quality of its products and services. Chapter 5 Wikinomics Beyond Business. The beauty of wikis is collaboration. I thought it would be interesting to see if collaborative efforts could provide useful information concerning the 2008 presidential elections. Quote by Alan, Wikinomics Playbook contributor. 5.1 Introduction. As we undertook this chapter, we asked our contributor network to consider opportunities for wikis beyond business and what implications Wikinomics could mean in the world at large. The responses were considerable and suggested considerable implications. What emerged was a sense that we are faced with a profound opportunity to engage, or maybe re-engage, citizens to connect ourselves and each other to a larger whole. In considering the implications to government bureaucracies, wikis present opportunities to shift the citizen-government relationship, perhaps even revitalizing the concept of democracy itself. Participatory democracy could evolve from a once every 3 or 4 years exercise at the ballot box to a relationship of real civic engagement, in which citizens impact decision-making and policy development on a day-to-day basis. From government programs to education to culture and entertainment, Wikinomics could spell a fundamental shift and empowerment of the common man, moving us from being passive recipients of programs, policies, entertainment and decisions to becoming active participants in the very things that define much of our daily interaction with the world. 5.1.1 What can this become? Marshall McLuhan suggested that we should consider the message that a medium conveys. For instance, by examining the effect its machines had on its customers' operations, IBM discovered that it was not in the office machine business, but rather in the information processing business. We're told that wikis convey the idea of openness. What else do they convey? What can a wiki evolve to, or help evolve, shift, change? As the concept of openness spreads, does it obsolesce our ideas of privacy? As we enable participation, do our ideas of leadership become obsolete? Do they shift? Collaboration platforms can reveal processes like nothing else we've ever seen. If we want, all the back rooms can become public venues. Can the transparency we gain help us achieve the understanding and trust we need to help us solve civic and global problems? Do we have leaders that are ready to step into this new opportunity? Or will they fear it will Britneyfy their lives to an intolerable degree? 5.2 Transparency as the antidote to mistrust. If the opening years of the 21st century have shown us anything, it's that we are interconnected, that our decisions have consequences we can't yet even imagine. Yet, if anything, civic engagement is at its nadir, and there would appear to be a profound erosion of trust in our institutions. The opaque command and control instincts of our traditional organizations has resulted not only in a disengaged and cynical public, but also in an erosion of their own adaptive capacity. It is to this end that the consequences may be even greater. The challenges we face in the opening years of the 21st century, climate change, hydrocarbon depletion, political extremists, and the decline of almost every living system on the planet, transcend boundaries and cultures, are intergenerational in scope and massively more complex than anything we have heretofore faced. As Thomas Homer Dixon has suggested, these problems are literally outstripping our capacity to generate the ingenuity we need in order to solve them, or mitigate their impact. If the status quo is broken, what do we replace it with? Perhaps replacing opaque command and control processes is one place to start. Maybe harnessing new and emerging communication technologies can re-engage citizens, thereby reviving what legitimacy and effectiveness remains of our large institutions before trust erodes completely. Perhaps, just perhaps, engaging minds all across the planet from every culture on wikis and blogs and podcasts and mashups and self-produced videos can harness and channel the multiplicity of perspectives we will need to understand and begin solving these planetary, intergenerational, seemingly intractable problems before they become truly unsolvable. 5.2.1 Geographic communities. The social fabric of a town or neighborhood can be woven tighter with weapons of mass collaboration. Community media citizen journalism websites feature citizen-created content, text, photos, video, audio, and citizen-initiated, moderated online discussions. PlaceBlogger track these sites. Ongoing community charrettes could be facilitated with transparent and widespread community engagement in the civic planning process. Individual citizens would be empowered to co-create a vision for, say, a new waterfront plan in a way currently only available to corporate interests. For example, in Northfield, Minnesota, citizens have created northfield.org and Locally Grown, as well as a local civic blogosphere comprised of citizen, organization, business, and leadership blogs. 5.2.2 Everyday Life. A wiki could be used by family and relatives to document genealogical data and memories of various members of the family. A family treasury of reveries. Wiki, Google Type, social calendars can be used to share and update family, friends, calendar information with weekly activities, appointments, events, etc. Updated by family, friends, calendar members. Collaborative planning tools for social events, family gatherings, can easily be shared and updated with a wiki document spreadsheet. Cooking recipes can be shared with variations of recipes updated on a wiki document. 5.2.3 Peacekeeping and conflict resolution. If a principal root of conflict lies in a sense of separateness, in the sense that we do not see others as being the same as us or as profoundly different than us, perhaps one source of conflict resolution can be found in the principles of Wikinomics. If the transparency and openness of Wikinomics can facilitate intercompany, intracompany, and public collaboration, could it be used to resolve conflict? If we can use collaborative processes to co-create a strategic vision for an organization, can we use it to co-create a vision of mutual prosperity? If Wikinomics enables engineering and marketing to communicate product requirements, can it also be used to help Palestinian children and Israeli children document their daily lives and share their art, resulting in greater understanding, empathy, and connectedness? Could conflict resolution, perhaps decades from now, be found in the shared stories of children? An aside on this page, headed, The Open Source Israel-Palestine Peace Plan. Since the professionals in Israel/Palestine are having a continuing lack of success at creating a workable peace plan that both will follow, Kurt Hopkins suggests, why not give it to the people themselves on both sides of the divide and create the open source Israel-Palestine Peace Plan? Set up a wiki and invite people, emphasizing Israelis and Palestinians, to create their own collaborative peace plan. Different people could work on various issues like borders, trade, right of return, etc. Invite some scholars and academics with specialities to augment the citizen involvement. 5.3 Mass collaboration in politics. Whether we realize it or not, the form and function of any political system is driven by its technologies. Politics is ripe for mass collaboration. Perhaps in no other area of life is there such a broad gap between current practice, using tools circa 1800, and what is now technologically feasible. Our current systems of government were designed to require only the horse, the printing press, the abacus, and the candle. The technical and practical constraints on democracy at that time meant that the best way to determine the will of the people was to print platforms, hold meetings, count votes, and send one person on a horse to the capital. With mass collaboration, it's now quite possible to distill the will of the people without the use of intermediaries, representatives, or traditional mass media acting as a filter. Of course, we must ask ourselves seriously if we really would prefer to be ruled by our neighbors, and if not, by whom. 5.3.1 Advanced Democracy. What forms could future democratic institutions take? It's difficult to predict because most people have never seriously considered alternatives to existing political systems. Politics, by nature, is resistant to change, because the rules are set only by the winners, and those who win under the current system clearly have no motivation to change the rules. Current small-scale experiments underway on the web, however, include the three most important functions that would have to exist in some mass collaborative democracy. Deliberation. Knowledge gathering and discussion that enables the due diligence required to make policy. The ability to define and frame issues that need to be decided. Decision making. Given the priorities have been established and choices exist, how do we decide? Activism. Rallying supporters around a candidate or an issue is a very much live component of the current and future systems. But even so, collaborative tools for activism are still being used in only very limited ways. Wikis are one example of a technology that can combine the deliberation and decision in one simple process, via collaborative editing. But to date, no project has been successful at attracting large numbers of participants to what is so far just a theoretical exercise. Collaboration is also an important tool to re-engineer the way we decide and govern. While many social projects fail because of the law of unintended consequences, mass collaboration would be far better at drawing out those unintended consequences at the planning stage. Electoral reform is a good example of a complex topic. Every possible voting system has unintended consequences. An aside on this page headed A More Collaborative Union. Instead of electing representatives from each region by a set of winner-take-all contests every 4 years or so, the legislative branches of government could be made up of representatives who have the support of some threshold number of voters from any region. There'd be no single election day, a much wider range of candidates to choose from, and any citizen's support for a representative could be withdrawn if they failed to represent their constituents. The drama of election night and the pomp and visuality of election campaigns would disappear. 5.3.2 Collaborative Decision Making. There are several projects started already to enable, at least in an experimental sense, citizens to become legislators by creating or redrafting laws using the Internet and collaborative websites. MorePerfect.org encourages people to rewrite the Constitution of the United States and propose legislation to any of the legislative bodies in the US. The World Parliament experiment encourages voting and consensus building on global issues, where anyone can propose a vote. 5.3.3 Collaborative Activism. Collaboration allows for new ways to interact with the current political process, whether it is collaborating to frame a spin-free voter's guide or tracking the performance of electoral politicians. These collaborative sites indicate how the Internet can and is changing the political process. Wiki, a politics portal, contains a list of wiki-based political communities. eDemocracy.org's wiki, this non-profit, non-partisan, non-advocacy site, includes the use of a wiki to collect contact and link information from candidates such as Minnesota gubernatorial candidates and the President 2008 directory effort. PolyWiki, a site where people can share information about the upcoming presidential election. The Ideal Government Project, a UK-based effort to enable citizens to say what they want from e-enabled government. 5.3.4 Collaborative Deliberation. Decosopedia, a left-orientated political encyclopedia. The Decosopedia is written from a left, progressive, liberal, democratic point of view. Issuepedia describes itself as the encyclopedia of issues, analysis, thought, and opinion. As with Wikipedia, anyone can edit. Unlike Wikipedia, we encourage opinions and rants as well as carefully considered analysis and purely factual writing. Their main page includes a list of related projects. openpolitics.ca, a project for ML Pilling and friends, which devised a new standard in 2004 for political deliberation via a wiki. ElectoWiki, talking about voting methods. 5.4 Government in the Age of Web 2.0. Collaboration can impact the business of government no less than business itself. Governments struggle as much as anyone with deeply entrenched bureaucracy, complex institutional structures, unwieldy decision-making processes, rigid models of management, and information silos. While many citizens and private sector organizations confront these same challenges, the rewards for successful cross-departmental collaboration could be a more responsive and less costly government. Explore opportunities for mass collaboration and self-organization among internal departmental and ministry user communities. One example is efforts in the US Department of Defense with its evolving concept of network-centric operations. Engaging more citizens in the policy process and improve transparency of decision-making while reducing cynicism towards government. Hold more local collaborative events, such as neighborhood-level charities, rather than designing and managing from afar. Solutions? Make public data publicly available in real time in a raw form that organizations can mash up. 5.4.1 The Emergency Wiki. Incident Command is a specific protocol for handling emergency situations such as chemical spills, fires, and natural disasters. It was born out of the critique of the Oakland Hills fire, where different fire and police agencies had difficulties working together because of differing terminology, dynamic chain of command subordination, and undocumented radio channel assignments. Wiki-based EMS systems present potential benefits including continued up-to-date information about chemical inventories, ongoing processing activities, as well as simple upkeep of the personal roster, reference material, and the written ICS instructions. Capture of the current state of refineries and other chemical processing facilities, together with a daily log of any specific potential hazards. Reduced exposure to potential server disruption of services caused by the incident given the web-based nature of the medium. Reduced chance of crosstalk compared to radio, as multiple functions continually provide updates. 5.4.2 How can the power of collaboration improve healthcare delivery? By its nature, good health is a collaborative effort between doctors, patients, nurses, workplaces, schools, governments, and community organizations. Despite this, the healthcare industry is just now contemplating the use of collaborative technologies in the treatment and prevention of disease. Creating hope. Could e-versions of Alcoholics Anonymous, suicide prevention, bereavement support, and communities better help people help each other? Can web-based systems improve service for people in crisis, where timelines and availability are so important? Mental health has a core component that seems to revolve around getting patients to emerge from isolation and re-engage with society. Participation, cooperation, social contact, interacting with others is key to many therapies. A wiki could be an ideal venue for mental health clients to rally around the group projects. Those who like to read and research, or who have natural talents or expertise, could work with others in creating treasuries of wisdom on various topics like art, gardening, music, etc. Building knowledge. Wikis could also be used to pool talent of mental health care professionals to collaborate on cost-saving ideas and innovative programs like pet therapy. Wikis could assemble a treasury of herbology, natural remedies, like Jethro Kloss' Back to Eden book. A more generic healthcare application would be using a wiki for professionals to create, update, and disseminate clinical practice guidelines. These are peer-reviewed documents intended to reduce provider-to-provider variability in the management of common problems, both chronic and acute. Examples include diabetes management, otitis media, allergic rhinitis, asthma, ADHD, to name just a few. The U.S. Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, AHRQ, maintains the National Guidelines Clearinghouse, www.guidelines.gov, which might provide a good foundation from which to build. Success in using collaboration tools can enable faster creation and distribution of knowledge, but realizing the full benefits would require an adoption strategy which includes adopting the current professional culture of guideline development, while core elements of current system, the peer review process, are and always will remain critical. The possibility of using the flexibility and transparency of collaborative tools to both speed up and intensify peer review is intriguing. Local healthcare intranets. Tangential to sharing best practices and guidelines through collaborative technology, these tools could be used by the multiple providers of patient care to work together more efficiently and cost-effectively, thus allowing a less expensive and more holistic care delivery system. Up until now, providers have operated primarily in silos, where co-delivering services to clients, patients, in the field of mental health and behavioral disorders. A considerable amount of work has been done, and is ongoing, to create an open source platform for electronic medical health records. See www.openehr.org for a great introduction. Similarly, many regional health information organizations, RHIOs, in the US and local health integration networks, LHINs, in Canada, are making grassroots efforts to improve communication and data access among different healthcare organizations. Ultimately, this will improve quality and reduce waste due to duplication of services. There are numerous problems to be resolved, such as security across multiple information platforms and the privacy issues related to managing patient information in a collaborative environment. 5.5. Peering in the classroom of tomorrow. The competitive advantage of societies may depend purely on how fast they're able to adapt their education systems to give individuals access to ever more information over shorter timescales, e.g., giving a high school graduate the same capabilities as a doctoral candidate. How do you compress the time it takes to learn? Today's school classroom evolved in the 19th and 20th centuries. It consists of a group of subordinate students presided over by a teacher, who in turn reports to a principal, a superintendent, a school board, etc. Collaboration occurs but is limited to small groups of students for projects or collaboration among teachers and administrators. This is in contrast to the normal world, where people learn mostly from their peers and a variety of experts. Would education benefit from a more natural collaborative learning process? Everyone has something to teach, something to offer, that is unique to their experiences or the result of their own personal analysis. Though the teacher standing in front of your class may very well be highly qualified to teach the subject at hand, they are most certainly not the only ones capable of teaching. The notion of one teacher, one class should be banished. It could be 100. Schools should follow MIT's innovation and post full curriculums online, class syllabus, text, homework, assignments, etc. But this time allow any who wish to participate in expanding or editing the syllabus. One issue for those who have noticed is that the traditional methods of teaching tend to be boring. Michael Furdyke of Taking It Global states that lack of engaging content is a significant issue facing American public education. Tapscott and Williams, 2006, page 51. In a one-teacher, many-student situation, there is very little room for individual input and interaction. Compare this against interactive online spaces, sites, and tools that are very attractive, energizing, and simply more engaging to students than humdrum, drill, kill activities found in the typical classroom. One other advantage is that knowledge is always under construction in these interactive spaces, sites, and tools. Berger and Luckman, 1966, outlined a process in which knowledge is socially constructed over time by an ever-growing group of like-minded individuals with similar interests. As their conception of knowledge gains traction, this new knowledge, created by a network of collaborating individuals, will in time become the new paradigm. Linus Torvalds alludes to this in saying, "People just self-select to do projects where they have expertise and interests." Tapscott and Williams, 2006, page 69. 5.5.1 Wikis for Teachers. In most jurisdictions and institutions, the curriculum is developed in a bubble. Each teacher typically develops most of their material alone or in a department. An enormous amount of duplication when you think that all schools or colleges are teaching pretty much the same topics. Some schools and teachers have begun sharing material on the web and on intranet, but it's not all widespread. To date, the most common repository for the curriculum is a file cabinet in the teacher's classroom. New teachers do not have access to any of this material unless the school has a good mentoring program, often bringing about a sink or swim process throughout the early years of a new teacher's career. Many have speculated that this approach has led to the drastic shortage in new qualified teachers. The problem itself becomes compounded very frequently as most teachers handle multiple subjects and some at different grade levels. A wiki that can serve as a large database of freely available lesson plans, tests, quizzes, and best practices on covering the state standards could be enormously beneficial for new teachers. The same problem is mirrored in textbook and workbook creation. At the primary and secondary level, typically teachers are using textbooks that are developed locally or regionally. Creating a textbook requires lengthy research, vetting, and continuous updating. Oftentimes, teachers are forced to create their own material until the latest version is released. Even then, it may not fit the teacher's needs and is then sidelined. A wiki has the potential to bring the development process of these resources to them on a personal level. The textbook publishers can host their information in a wiki, allowing teachers to pick up and choose what they need, rather than the other way around. Teachers can also become a part of the development process by continuously adding information, filling in gaps, building information about regional topics and fixing the errors of the publishers. Not only could this greatly enhance the teacher's ability to provide high-quality lesson plans, but it could also help the schools to reduce their dependence on large distributions of new textbooks. Teachers could print or project the page rather than use a textbook. Buying new textbooks is a costly process that prevents the schools from spending money on other programs. Of course, the teachers could just build this themselves and then sideline the publishers altogether, bringing free knowledge to the world and immensely improving our public education system. California Open Source Textbooks Project, a case study of how children's textbooks can be written in a wiki. 5.5.2 Teachers as facilitators rather than instructors. Collaboration allows for student-to-student, P2P education in a way that breaks out of the boundaries of the classroom. Mike Jones, a college professor, now uses wikis in all his classes to allow students to teach each other. His research in using wikis for the classroom was sponsored by Sheridan College's Professional Development Institute in Toronto. He's developing best practices on how to organize, develop material, teach, and evaluate within a wiki. One of the important discoveries was how collaborative wiki-based learning built on practical abilities in ways that traditionally passive instructing doesn't. Whereas in textbook-based learning, the activity focus is to get students to remember, understand, and apply knowledge, collaborative learning encourages them to analyze, evaluate, and create. Table 1, the revised taxonomy table. Down the left-hand side, the knowledge dimension, factual knowledge, conceptual knowledge, procedural knowledge, metacognitive knowledge. Along the top, the cognitive process dimension. Remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. In the lower right-hand quadrant, covering analyze, evaluate, create, conceptual knowledge, procedural knowledge, metacognitive knowledge, is a red rectangle. Inside, wikis enable this part of learning in a way few traditional processes do. Quote, in our classroom wiki, 97% of edits, over 9,000 overall, were student-generated. Most students were able to ask and answer their own questions. It was very interesting to see how this emerged. When you have 120 students co-creating the course, there's a fair amount of flux, but it does follow some sense of order. This is largely due to there being an explicit requirement to participate, without the reward of grades. I'm not entirely sure if there would be as much effort. 5.5.3 Collaborative tools for teaching. One way to harness the nexus of cooperation, collaboration, and socially constructed knowledge in the classroom is through the blog, a tool which allows teachers to share ideas, strategies, and curriculum across geographical boundaries with inexpensive ease. Students' blogs provide a larger, authentic audience for the writing and exploration of ideas than the lone teacher grading class papers. It opens the door to peer review and learning, as well as learning from the entire online community. Google Docs and other wiki-like word processing applications hold potential for collaboration between teachers and student. Papers become living documents, where revisions are easily observed and recorded, and comments can be attached in text. Multiple users can be brought in simply to view and comment on a document, or actually contribute to it and revise it. A class, a school, or several schools can all collaborate to create expansive works ranging from science manuals, literary criticism, historical analysis, or anything else that would be far less likely a product of one or two students and teachers. 5.6 Collaboration for culture. Quote, art doesn't necessarily benefit from the free and open exchange of ideas and edits. Science does, and most specifically software development does. But when you take something like music and apply the same paradigm, it's no longer personal. Maybe the masses of generalists could construct an interesting collage of samples, but could they collectively write a good love song? By Brendan Long. It used to be that aspiring musicians had to get signed by a label to get the money and facilities to get major play on the radio, and the only way to obtain the music for oneself was to go to a record store. Things have changed. Today, someone with the right stuff could become a star using only a computer, an internet connection, and a bright spark of creativity. Millions of songs are available to be downloaded for free, legally or otherwise, from the net. Now that digital recording and sound production software packages are available to the masses, demand is increasing for music formats that allow collaboration. Established bands such as the Beastie Boys and Nine Inch Nails are seeing the benefits of loosening control over the music. Fans are no longer passive, they're becoming listener artists who co-create music online, using tracks that artists have posted on the internet in a form that their fans can easily remix. The Beastie Boys came the closest to mass collaboration with their concert video, Cool, I Effing Shot That, which passed out cameras to audience members who shot footage that was then later edited together to form a cohesive film by the band. These are the types of innovations that are necessary to keep the music industry alive in this new era of technology. However, neither is a full revolution in the sense that they don't aim to replace the superstar economics under which the old industry is run. Rather, they aim to use technology to give fans a greater sense of involvement with the music that they purchase. This creates a sense of community and a vested interest in the product that can help to increase sales as a whole. Culture, by its nature, is a product of mass collaboration. Each member of a culture is able to influence and be influenced by others. In this regard, mass collaboration, powered by the internet, has two effects. 1. It changes the boundaries of community. The perimeter of people who can observe and be influenced can now be anyone in the world. 2. It provides everyone with the ability to amplify ideas and behaviors. 5.6.1 How might mass collaboration transform music? With technology, the skill of creating music becomes separate for the first time from the physical skills required to play an instrument. In the past, a specialist who excelled at a given instrument was a leader in the industry, which revolved around superstars. Technology, however, gave a leg up to generalists. 1,000 fair saxophonists could not add up to one Branford Marsalis, but one Branford Marsalis could add brilliance to 1,000 hip-hop or acid jazz compositions. The skills of Branford Marsalis are not achievable by anyone, but the skills of the generalist can, to a large extent, be facilitated by software. Those who can sample content accessed from the internet now have facilities that were once only available to commercial studios. Further, policy changes such as the BBC opening up their audio and video files for anyone in the UK to remix put a huge amount of source material into the hands of the masses. The primary barriers to musical collaboration now are 1. Legal issues of copyright and how to make fair use of samples and remixes. 2. A mass music industry that can't seem to do anything but cling to an old profit model where stars are made and sold and all rights are reserved. 5.6.2 Can there be a Creative Commons-based music industry? Neil Layton, who founded a music label called Fading Ways Music, to embrace shared music and collaborative culture, has an insider's perspective on the prospect of collaboration in the music business. According to Neil, a CC-based music industry implies a complete reworking of how most music biz people, both on the artistic as well as business side, think of music. Most mainstream and aspiring artists seek the kind of fame and fortune that mass media hype and marketing can bring. The nature of superstar economics, however, is that the very few hype-successful artists, in the commercial sense at least, tend to leave little on the table for their less fortunate peers. Non-commercialized artists may have more freedoms and even produce more rich artistic offering, but economically speaking, it is unsustainable. The first step to a CC-based music business, artists and labels, a new system of rights and royalties administration is needed. While independent artists are technically able to collect royalties under the current performance rights organization system, the metrics that are used to divide the revenues are biased to favor the cartels and biggest artists, being based on commercial radio play and record sales. Under these rules, the megastars tend to scoop up royalties that under a more accurate system would belong to the long tail of indie artists. The technology exists for a more sophisticated payment system that remunerates not only the original artist, but those who contribute and remix the original work. A CC-based system could allow an equitable distribution of revenues in a transparent pathway of the micropayments, from one work to another, facilitated by user playlists such as lastfm.com, YouTube, MySpace, or other Web 2.0 applications. Users or fans could even participate in the revenue stream in an environment where the line between the artist and the audience becomes increasingly blurred. For the new version of nealeaton.com, I'm working on a system where user content could be monetized through a system of paid downloads, whether subscription-based or pay per download, that remunerate both the artist and the fan who contributed the content. Even the most forward-thinking artist likes to retain some comfortable level of control over their creation. In this aspect, the CC revolution in music will not exactly mirror the open source software GNU type evolution. Artists are not programmers, nor do programmers fully understand art. There is an artistic ego that is a valid necessity to the creation of good art. 5.6.3 Could the masses have written a better end to The Sopranos TV series? The ending of The Sopranos series surprised many viewers in that it foiled viewers' attempts to achieve a denounced closure to the story. Everyone was debating who was going to get whacked, and it turned out the only person to get whacked was the audience. The tension builds through the episode, and then the camera turns off. That's pretty much it. One commentator felt that the author was deliberately leaving his opinion open for a sequel of a future movie plot. What would the audience have done? Probably, as in most gangster features, seen to it that Tony Soprano died by the sword he lived by. There is one well-known example of harnessing the power of a wiki to write fiction. The experiment called A Million Penguins, in which the publisher of that name set up an installation of MediaWiki and invited the internet to write a novel. One of the problems in that experiment was that the participants enjoyed too many degrees of freedom. The prose all turned into zany chaos. In a TV series, however, the freedom is much better constrained. A legion of fans would have to be true to the established characters, and would probably police each other for that. If character was fixed, plot was the variable. Since dialogue is mostly a derivative of plot, that could have been left out of the collaborative effort. What remains is the stage directions. Would music created by a group in a self-organized fashion using modern networking tools fill those needs, or different needs? What lessons can be learned from existing self-organization examples engaged in globalized activities like software development? An aside on this page. How to wiki an episode of The Sopranos. 1. Create a page called Episode 86, a name free of connotations. 2. On episode 86, all that exists is a list of episode summaries and a short paragraph with a meta description, plot, summary. You allow parallel versions of the story to develop and pick the best. 1. Each version should have its own home page. Example, episode 86, The Fat Lady Sings. 3. Each alternative version page contains a list of scenes and alternate scenes, each with their own meta description. 4. At the scene level, you finally have a written description of what actually happens, with links to the preferred previous scene and the one which most ought to follow. 5. Lead author roles should be freely taken, and the lead authors for each scene should include lots of meta notes to other authors, which indicate what scope of participation would be helpful. The key to all this is to design a properly iterative process where meta information comes first, becomes fixed, and then serves as a boundary/framework to all child pages/objects. 5.7. Belief in the age of mass collaboration. Beliefs matter, whether one is religious or not. They underpin everything we do and say and can facilitate or be a barrier to collaboration, projects large or small. Most religions, ideologies, and other belief systems haven't been designed to be collaborative. In fact, it's nearly the opposite. Many doctrines seek to invalidate or defeat other doctrines, and many wars and terrible violence has too often been the result. Can we collaborate on our beliefs? Will collaboration on beliefs help to build mutual understanding? Do underlying beliefs tend to disrupt attempts as collaboration in workplaces and social institutions? Kartik Ariyur points out how, in the age of mass collaboration, it's necessary to discuss the implications of what we believe. Unless you do that, belief systems will just remain the invisible elephant in the room, which everyone has to navigate around while wondering why the collaboration isn't working. Problem: how do you discuss something when you don't even have a common vocabulary? 5.7.1. How do we discuss beliefs? One reason for the inherent clash of ideas is the lack of common vocabulary. Most of the words in play have different meanings in different belief systems, so communication, let alone collaboration, is difficult. Science tries to get around this language problem by using common objective definitions. What is the time, for example? Scientists say that 1 second, in any language, is the duration of 9,192,631,770 periods of radiation corresponding to the atomic vibration, the cesium-133 atom. Religions and ideologies usually don't seek objective references. In fact, the core of many ideologies is creating new words or new meanings for existing words. Like most aspects of culture, it generally doesn't, because true objectivity is hard to come by. Defining faith is not easy. Defined or not, beliefs have consequences, even if they happen to be untestable, as history has shown repeatedly in crusades, jihads, pogroms, purges, and institutionalized persecution of different kinds. 5.7.2. A way out of the problem. Kartik recommends a simple-to-say but hard-to-do solution to this problem. Separate metaphysics from the morality. There are two aspects to any belief system. Morality, how to behave, including how to think. Metaphysics, the why we must behave so. Morality and moral principles can be thought of as outward or esoteric aspects of belief. They are the actionables that follow from our belief in a higher being or subscription to a world view. The metaphysics or personal philosophy that defines the why is the part of our belief system that is generally very difficult to talk about, compare, or discuss. These personal first principles can be called esoteric or inward beliefs. You can't really criticize someone for their beliefs. It's just a matter of subjectivity. If we make this kind of separation, collaboration becomes possible. The esoteric or non-debatable aspect of religion can be left for personal exploration, while the outward aspects can be subject to public discussions. Esoteric aspects of religion can be very similar. There does seem to be a common element of morality, though the differing metaphysics can result in entirely different moral choices by individuals following different religions. Chapter 6. Final Thoughts. The ancient curse, "May you live in interesting times." We live in interesting times. Our technology now has the power to create us and destroy us. Biosciences stand to redefine the very concept of life itself. The machines are manufacturing entire landscapes heretofore foreign to us. Computing has made distance and time obsolete. Flows of pixelated dollars have created a globalized marketplace. In the midst of all this, are we still the same animal we always were? Technology can transform us physically, but socially, psychologically, behaviorally? In mass collaboration, the potential for doing things differently runs smack up against some very hardwired, self-interested behavioral patterns that are hard to shake. In politics, for example, are we still just as vulnerable to falling under the spell of some new demagogue who exploits our insecurities to enhance his political power? In business, will aggressive, self-aggrandizing CEOs demand and receive outrageous pay packages while using their clout to dismantle any collective intelligence that disagrees? Will wikis overtake blogs in popularity, or will everyone stay on their pedestals so they can live safely and unchallenged within the walls of their opinions? Fads break like tidal waves and flood the markets, but then the waters recede and everything is the same again. Social change is not so obvious, and many years will be required before the tendrils and ripples of reactions organize into some coherent pattern, enabling us to gain perspective. But there is a sense that the world has become a very distant place. A paradox is at play. We have shrunk boundaries. We have Facebook friends in Tokyo, but our organizations and systems are becoming larger, more connected, ever more complex. It's a very human thing to want some order in all that. It's a very human thing to want to know there is a plan. Climate change, homelessness, genocide, energy shortages, terrorism, pedophiles stalking kids on the internet, crime syndicates from faraway countries, stealing our entire identity. Somebody must have a plan, we say. But as we look around for a plan, as we look around for leaders, increasingly we're finding there is no great plan. There are no great leaders who have the answers. There are great problems and there are great opportunities. There are conflicts to be resolved and there is potential just waiting to be unleashed. Amongst this, there is us. A we with all our collective insights, perspectives, dreams and ideas. We may find, much to our dismay, that we are the ones in charge after all. Thank you for listening to my reading of the Wikinomics Playbook. I'd welcome your feedback at info@wikinomics.com.au, and if you found value in the reading, a donation of $2 to donations@wikinomics.com.au. Till next time, thank you again and goodbye.